In Activity 11, Applications, Past and Present, students discuss the lists they have been keeping of how rocks and minerals were used in the past versus how they are used today. They then discuss the applications of rocks and minerals based on their properties. You will need the following materials from the kit: Activity Sheet 11, List of Mineral and Rock Applications, Rock Guide, and the Rock and Minerals video. You will also need to provide a DVD and monitor. To prepare for Session 1, make a copy of Activity Sheet 11 for each student. Make sure to review the Rock Guide to familiarize yourself with the characteristics of different rocks and minerals. Students will also need the lists that they have made of the uses of rocks and minerals today and in the past. To begin Session 1, explain to students that as prehistoric people roamed the wilderness searching for food and shelter, they often had to hide from predators. In these prehistoric times, rocks could be found in abundance. Ask students, if you had lived in prehistoric times, how would you have used rocks to help you in your daily struggle to survive? Students should suggest that rocks could be used for tools and weapons or to provide shelter from harsh weather. Then ask, what might have been some other uses of rocks back then? Help students understand other uses for rocks, such as for monuments, decoration, tombs, marking trails, and so on. Next, instruct students to retrieve their lists and to review what they have written. Then, distribute Activity Sheet 11 and ask, if you lived in prehistoric times and had available to you the rock specimens in the kit, which ones do you think would make the best tools or weapons for hunting? Why? Inform the class that most tools and weapons, spearheads, arrowheads, and knives, were made from obsidian or flint because it was easy to make sharp edges on it by flaking it with another stone or a bone. Identify flint as a variety of quartz, and note that flint is not the same material that is used today in lighters. Then, ask students, which rocks do you think would provide adequate shelter? Students may mention caves, which could have provided a place to hide from predators and protection from sun, wind, rain, and snow. Explain that natural caves are formed by erosion of limestone rock formations or through volcanic or earthquake activity. Further explain, other caves were chiseled out by hand from cliff walls. Help students understand that caves can be man-made as well, as throughout history methods were devised for digging out stone from quarries, then cutting, transporting, and lifting the stone into place. These stones were often used in the construction of temples and monuments. Ask students, can you think of some famous ancient structures that are built of rock? Students may mention well-known examples of ancient rock construction that are still standing today, such as the pyramids, Stonehenge, the Parthenon, and the Colosseum. Ask students, what about minerals? What do you think our ancestors used them for? Inform students that halite, or rock salt, has been used for thousands of years to preserve and season meat, fish, and other foods. Introduce some of the other uses of minerals. For instance, gold and silver have been used through history for ornamentation and jewelry. Lead and iron have created more durable and efficient tools and weapons. Also, some minerals, either individually or in combination with other minerals, have been extracted to make medicine. To conclude Session 1, tell the students that they should choose one of the applications listed on the activity sheet: tools and weapons, shelter, buildings, and monuments, or some other application, and research it further to learn more about the types of rocks and minerals our ancestors used for such objects and how the objects were made. Instruct students to record their research findings in the right-hand column on Activity Sheet 11. To begin Session 2, discuss, as a class, the research results that students have recorded on the activity sheet. Ask students, what are some rocks that are used in modern construction? Students may mention granite and marble, which are cut and polished for use in the modern construction of office buildings, shopping malls, statues, and monuments. Encourage students to think about coal, which is used to stoke the furnaces in ironworks and foundries, and steel, which is a durable metal made in foundries from iron and other minerals that have been melted, combined, poured into molds, and allowed to harden. Inform students that steel is used in everything from teaspoons to skyscrapers. Then ask students, can you think of any environmental applications for rocks and minerals? Encourage students to think about the many rocks with little valuable mineral content that are piled along some riverbanks and ocean beaches to prevent flooding and erosion. Then ask students, have you ever heard of lasers? What are they? How are they used? Tell the class that the word laser is an acronym for light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation. The very first laser employed a rod made from the mineral corundum, also known as a ruby. When the rod was subjected to an electric current, the laser projected precise beams of light. Explain that lasers are used today in medicine, manufacturing, and CD players. Ask students, are there any other common minerals used in today's technology? Help students understand that burning coal produces steam that turns turbines that produce electricity. Some students may be familiar with silicon, which is used to make semiconductors, the miniature electrical components found in everything from televisions and radios to cellular phones and computers. Inform students that silicon is the second most abundant mineral on Earth, and that it accounts for 28% of the weight of the Earth's crust. Then ask students, have you ever heard the term piezoelectric? Explain to the class when you apply pressure to some crystals, quartz for example, they produce tiny electrical pulses. These crystals have what is called piezoelectric properties and are used in microphones and in record player needles. Ask students, what about health and medicine? Which minerals are included in a multivitamin? Students may know that iron, calcium, and zinc are included in a multivitamin. Help students understand that the human body needs only minute amounts of certain minerals, and that children should never ingest any substance without the advice and consent of a parent or guardian. Next, have students choose one of the applications listed on the activity sheet: construction, environmental, tools and weapons, electronics, health and medicine, or some other application, and research it further to learn more about the types of rocks and minerals our ancestors used for such objects and how the objects were made. Students should record their research findings in the right-hand column of Activity Sheet 11. To conclude Session 2, ask students to think of as many household uses as they can for rocks and minerals, and to write them on the back of their activity sheet. Remind them to refer to their lists for ideas. To begin Session 3, lead a discussion by asking students, what uses for rocks and minerals were you able to find at home? Answers may include crystals in old radios, silicon in semiconductors used in computers, talc in baby powder, coal in furnaces and stoves, sulfur in matches, or granite or marble in works of art and in building materials. Ask several student volunteers to share their research with the class. Finally, show Part 3 of the Rocks and Minerals video titled Rocks and Minerals in Our Daily Lives to the class.
This giant mineral is topaz, and it's a real work of art. But rocks and minerals can have practical uses too.
To conclude Session 3, return the video to the kit. For science background, reinforcement activities, curriculum connections, and information about the Delta Science Reader, please consult your DSM Teacher's Guide.